Hey guys, Jay here, and this is it, the finale. This is my F1 fantasy team for the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Let's get into it. So first of all, guys, just to recap what happened in Qatar. I had a bit of a mixed weekend, but nothing majorly bad. So for Team 1, I had McLaren, Mercedes, Norris as ×3, Piastri as ×2, Sainz, Alonso, Colapinto, obviously playing the ×3 chip. Came away with 365 points and 0.8 in budget. The two transfers that I made was Antonelli and Bearman to Piastri and Alonso. This gave me 52 points, but I did lose 0.5 million. And as I said, I did play the ×3 chip on Norris, going with a triple McLaren build. Unfortunately, he only got me an extra 25 points. Piastri coming away with 46 on the ×2. So I technically lost out on the ×3, making it a bit of a waste. But 71 points. That being said, I did climb back up the ranks by 4,000 places, undoing the damage from Vegas. For Team 2, I didn't have any chips left to play, so it was McLaren, Red Bull, Norris's ×2, Piastri, Sainz, Alonso, Gasly, 301 points, 1.4 million budget rise, 3 transfers, Antonelli, Bearman and Mercedes to Piastri, Alonso, Red Bull, giving me a total of 62 points, but a 0.5 drop in budget. And sadly, but not surprisingly, a slight drop in rank by just under 800 places. Again, no chip, so at a slight disadvantage. And then finally for Team 3, again, using the ×3 chip, McLaren, Red Bull, Norris ×3, Piastri ×2, Sainz, Alonso, Gasly, 372 points, 1.4 million budget rise. 3 transfers were Antonelli, Bearman, Mercedes to Piastri, Alonso, Red Bull. Again, 62 points, negative 0.5 loss on budget. Again, the ×3, the same as Team 1. Extra 25 points for Norris, 46 for Piastri, 71 total. And again, a nice little climb in rank by just under 4,000 places. Again, undoing the damage from Vegas. So despite the red arrow in Team 2, 2 blue arrows for Team 1 and Team 3, whatever happens, this is the best season I've had in F1 Fantasy. It's been a lot of fun. I'm not as high as I would have liked to have been. Of course, I would have liked to have been right at the top, in the top 5 at least, especially with Team 1. But nonetheless, I can't complain. Best season I've had. Now, just trying to do that final push in Abu Dhabi. With that said, I've looked at the elite data for the Global 500. The ×3 chip was the big chip this past weekend in Qatar. 53.4% of teams playing the ×3 chip. One thing to bear in mind going into Abu Dhabi is that 19% of teams still have their autopilot chip, 26% of teams, still have their final fixed chip, and 10% of teams still have their wildcard chip. So don't be surprised to see some changes in the rankings after this weekend. Now, in terms of the driver selection, Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen were the 2 top A-tier drivers that were chosen. 79.8% of teams bringing in Piastri. Surprisingly, 26.6% of teams dropped Verstappen. That being said, in terms of the ×2 DRS boost, it was an even split, 37% each for Piastri and Verstappen. Norris was the differential. 29.4% of teams had Norris, with 15.2% bringing him in, 13.2% having him as ×2. Unfortunately, that differential not working out. The other big surprise, though, was Fernando Alonso. 75.8% of teams having Alonso, with 54.6% of teams bringing Alonso in. I would imagine due to his price. But that being said, he had a good result, so it was the right move. In terms of the constructors, it was Mercedes and McLaren were the top 2 picks. 24% of teams either bringing in or bringing back McLaren. Red Bull was the differential. Only 17% of teams had Red Bull. Otherwise, there was barely any love, if not no love, for Aston Martin, Williams, VTuber, Alpine, Ferrari, HAAS and Kick. Now, early thoughts. This is it. A 3-way title fight in Abu Dhabi. So it's pick your driver. Lando Norris leads the championship with 12 points ahead of Verstappen, 16 points ahead of Piastri. My understanding is Norris just needs a podium, unless Verstappen and Piastri have like a DNF. Verstappen is 4 points ahead of Piastri. Piastri is missing P1. I can't remember who's taking up the spot, but I believe Piastri is missing P1. So he's going to be behind in preparation. But it's very tight. It's very close. As you know, I'm a McLaren fan. I'm a Norris fan. So my fingers are crossed for Norris. But I wouldn't be surprised if Verstappen takes it. And the way things have gone this season, I wouldn't even be surprised if, out of the blue, Piastri nicks it. So, pick your driver. Now, Norris. I don't think we can take his stats that much into consideration because obviously he was disqualified after the Las Vegas Grand Prix due to the plank wear. And let's be real, McLaren really dropped the ball on their strategy in Qatar. Not pitting under the safety car was just so silly. So I wouldn't read too much into the points for Vegas and Qatar. But I do worry if recent results could knock his confidence. And I did notice in Qatar he was a little slow off the start, on the start, which does worry me. That being said, he did win, I believe, in Abu Dhabi last season. Now, if I was to place my money is on Verstappen winning both the race and the championship. Just because A, he's Verstappen, and B, McLaren might do something silly, or, Norris and Piastri might make a silly mistake just under pressure. So confidence-wise, not even confidence-wise, in terms of relaxation, because I can't think of the word I'm trying to think of, I would say Max hasn't really got anything to lose. So he's probably going to be going in pretty relaxed. And yeah, my money would be on him right now. Also, we can't disregard his form. I mean, his form is excellent. He's got over 110 points in the last 2 races. Then we have the dark horse, Oscar Piastri. I'm not ruling Piastri out. He came out of nowhere in Qatar after his recent form. I didn't go with Piastri for Qatar because I thought the practice sessions and the sprint qualifying was just going to be like a bit of a trap, if I'm honest. Form doesn't look good, but again, disqualified after Vegas, so we can't really take that into consideration. If he goes into Abu Dhabi the way he's gone into Qatar, he's definitely got a chance. So I wouldn't rule him out, plus he's also cheapest of the 3. If you don't have a huge budget, there is of course alternatives, and those being the Mercedes drivers. George Russell, his form is fine. And of course, Kimi Antonelli, who has just been on fire recently. Yes, he made that mistake towards the end in Qatar, and we're going to get to that later in the video because there's been a bit of nastiness about it. Hopefully that hasn't knocked his confidence, and he is a cheaper option of the 2. Now, of course, if we're trying to run the best 2 A drivers that we can, we need some low-budget B drivers, and I've put these in the order that I think makes sense to me. Carlos Sainz has just been, on it recently. I think if he's in your team, you keep him. If you can get him in. But he is 7.7 million, so he is starting to rise. But yeah, Carlos Sainz would be my top pick for a Tier B driver. I would then look to Isack Hadjar. He was unlucky in Qatar with that puncture right at the end. But otherwise, his form isn't bad. It's okay. 13 points in Brazil, 16 points in the United States. We saw earlier in the season what he can do. I don't know if it's been confirmed yet, but the rumour is that he will be joining Max Verstappen at Red Bull next season. So that is another reason why he is a good pick. If you can't afford Hadjar, then there's Liam Lawson. I'm 50-50 on Lawson still, but if you can get him in, I wouldn't rule it out. So he is another option. Fernando Alonso I like just because of his price. He's only 4.7. So he's pretty much on the plus. He's still on the price floor, basically. And he did have a good result in Qatar, coming away with 12 fantasy points. And then finally, we don't really like to run Alpines, but Pierre Gasly has been getting into Q3 lately. He did only come away with 3 points in Qatar, but he got 21 points in Brazil. So if you need an Alpine driver, Gasly over Colapinto every day of the week. Now, if you can't get 2 top A-tier drivers, let's say you're running someone like Piastri, Antonelli, but that means you've got more budget to spend on your B drivers, then I've got 3 picks for you. Oliver Bearman, devastated for him in Qatar after that nasty pit stop. He literally went into bear mode in that cockpit, whacking the steering wheel. But he is 9.3, which is why he's a high B tier alternative. But his form speaks for itself, and I do think he could get a good result in Abu Dhabi. Second pick is Alexander Albon. Obviously more expensive. Form has been up and down in my opinion, but has been good as of recent, except for in Vegas. Only 5 points in Qatar, but I wouldn't rule Albon out. The Williams have been very strong recently. And then finally, as a differential, Yuki Tsunoda, he has nothing to lose. He's in a Red Bull, and if he can pull off what he did in sprint qualifying and sprint race in Qatar, then he's got a good shout. Now for constructors, McLaren is obviously your number 1 choice still, in my opinion. They still come away with the most points. Again, they were disqualified after Vegas, so we can't really take that into consideration. 96 points in Qatar, so still came away as the best constructor. So you definitely want McLaren in your team. It does come with the risk, obviously, of, say, a Norris Piastri collision if they're fighting for the title. But I would keep McLaren or bring McLaren in if you need to. Along with McLaren, I would either run Red Bull as a differential in the terms of Red Bull comes with Verstappen but comes with Tsunoda, so you are rolling the dice a little bit. That being said, they did come away with more points than Mercedes in Qatar, so that's why I've got them as my second tier A constructor pick. And then of course Mercedes, who are more of the safe play and probably more the sensible play, if I'm completely honest. But again, their form's fine, and so yeah, you want McLaren and Red Bull or McLaren and Mercedes. And the other thing to bear in mind is Red Bull is more expensive than Mercedes. Now, if you can't get to 2 A-tier constructors, then I've got 2 B-tier options that I would look at. I've got an A-tier and a B-tier option I would look at. That's my mistake, apologies. Williams is 19.5 million. They're tier A constructor, good differential if you don't have a huge budget. And then if you do need to bring in a B-tier constructor, then it would be Racing Bulls. For me, their form is fine. 47 points Brazil, 30 points Vegas, 22 points in Qatar. Now, in terms of chips, everything's on the table. It's the last race of the season. If you don't use it, you lose it. Use whatever you've got to try and get an advantage. So where does that leave me with my teams? Well, I'll be honest, there's not much I can do. So for Team 1, the first thing I would do is make Norris my DRS. That being said, if I was to drop Norris, I'd bring in Verstappen. But that does mean I wouldn't be able to have Verstappen and Norris. I'd have to keep Piastri. Not against that. I don't think I can get to Red Bull. No, so I'd have to keep Mercedes. In which case, I would drop Colapinto. And then let's see what I can do here. I could gamble on Hulkenberg. Last race of the season, why not? Otherwise, I'd have to keep Colapinto. And that's probably about it for Team 1, if I'm honest. Otherwise, I'd be sticking with a triple McLaren build. So those are the 2 options I'm looking at for Team 1. Does mean I've got Colapinto. No way around that, unfortunately. But that's where my mind is at. For Team 2, they've got the biggest budget. However, I am in the same position, more or less. Can't get to Norris and Verstappen, which is what I would like. So again, at the moment, it's a triple McLaren build. Otherwise, it's bringing Verstappen for Norris. And then I would probably drop Gasly. And I can go to, say, a Hadjar or Lawson. Right now, I'd go for Hadjar. And I would play something like that. And Team 3 is more or less the same thing. I would drop Norris to Verstappen. This time, low. Budget's not as good. So I can still get to Hadjar, but that would be all my budget. Otherwise, again, I'd be looking to keep a triple McLaren build. And you'll notice in Team 2 and 3, I have Red Bull. I'm minded to keep with Red Bull just because they got Verstappen. And that is literally the only reason. Now, if you're here in the UK, it's going to be an early one for us for practice. On Friday, it's 9:30 in the morning for practice 1, and then 1 o'clock in the afternoon for practice 2. On Saturday, practice 3 is at 10:30, and then qualifying and the last time to lock in your team is 2 o'clock on Saturday, with the race at 1 o'clock on Sunday. In terms of weather, I'm recording this on Tuesday, the 2nd of December, so bear that in mind. As you'd probably predict, weather should be fine. It's going to be clear, should be decent hot, so no concerns with weather. Last season's top 12 in F1 Fantasy was actually Charles Leclerc, who had a great Abu Dhabi race last season, but I'm not convinced on the Ferraris going into Abu Dhabi this year. That being said, Lando Norris, I believe, won the race and came second in F1 Fantasy with 35 points. And then Hamilton, Sainz, Verstappen, Russell, followed by Gasly, Magnussen, Hulkenberg, Albon, Piastri, and Jack Doohan, who filled in for Esteban Ocon after he signed for HAAS. Now, in case you missed it, F1 Fantasy have released a new tool on the F1 Fantasy Tools website. So if you're a Patreon member, you can now go to season summary, and there is now a rank progression graph where you can have a look at all your progress throughout the season, where you've climbed, where you've fallen, what chips you've used, and you can even have a look and see what your scores were and how it affected your rank. So I highly recommend you check that out. You do need a Patreon account for this, I believe, in order to track your progress. But yeah, it's a nice little tool and something we'll probably look more at next season. Last week was the 4-year anniversary of the passing of Sir Frank Williams. Obviously, as you know, Sir Frank Williams was the founder of Williams Racing, now Atlassian Williams Racing. So yeah, it's been 4 years since Sir Frank passed away. Lando Norris made history over the weekend. 151 races with McLaren, the most ever for any McLaren driver. And Leonardo Fornaroli is the 2025 Formula 2 champion. I didn't see the race, but he is the champion. He won the F3 crown in 2024. So F3 crown done, F2 crown done. I'm going to assume he's going to be in F2 again next season, but keep an eye out for him, because who knows, maybe we'll see him in F1 for 2027. And sadly, finally, there was a bit of sad news. Kimi Antonelli changing his profile picture to a black screen after online abuse and bullying due to the mistake he made in the Qatar Grand Prix. There was an article released about this where what effectively sparked the online outrage was a comment made by GP, Verstappen's race engineer, where he said to Max during the race, "Not sure what happened to Antonelli. Max looks like he just pulled over and let Norris through." Now, after that, Antonelli received a lot of online bullying. However, GP has apologised to the Mercedes team principal Toto Wolff for the comment, and Red Bull have released a statement that says, "Comments made before the end of and immediately after the Qatar Grand Prix suggesting that Mercedes driver Kimi Antonelli had deliberately allowed Lando Norris to overtake him are clearly incorrect. Replay footage shows Antonelli momentarily losing control of his car, thus allowing Norris to pass him. We sincerely regret that this has led to Antonelli receiving online abuse." Now, Toto Wolff was also asked about this incident. He said it was nonsense. "We are fighting for P2 in the championship, which is important for us. Kimi is fighting for a potential P3 in the race. It annoys me because I'm annoyed with the race itself, how it went. I'm annoyed with the mistake at the end. I'm annoyed with other mistakes, and then hearing such nonsense blows my mind." Now, since then, GP has since apologised to Toto Wolff, and they have spoken. Toto Wolff said, I saw him, and obviously he was emotional in that moment because McLaren needed a P3, I guess, to win the championship, or P4, I don't know, but one position. And I said to him, Antonelli just went off. He then further went on to say, Antonelli had a bit of a moment in the previous corner and then less entry speed into that left-hander, put the gas down, and at that moment, which can happen, that lost the position. So with GP, everything is clear. He said he didn't see the situation. Therefore, putting the whole thing to bed, and fair play to GP for going to Toto and apologising. Finally, guys, in terms of grid rivals, I had a pretty good weekend, I think. 992 points, 2.2 million price rise. I had Piastri, Verstappen, Norris, Stroll, Bortoletto, and Red Bull. And that is it for me, guys. Last team selection video of the season, but I will be back real soon with possibly a season review. Definitely a review of how things go in Abu Dhabi. Otherwise, might throw in a few bits of content here and there over the winter break. But otherwise, thank you so much for this season. The support has been, beyond what I thought it could get to, if I'm completely honest. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll speak to you real soon. All the best. Bye.